Jesus said to his disciples, "A rich man had a steward who was reported to him for squandering his property. He summoned him and said, 'What is this I hear about you? Prepare a full account of your stewardship, because you can no longer be my steward.' The steward said to himself, 'What shall I do? Now that my master is taking the position of a steward away from me, I am not strong enough to dig, and I am ashamed to beg. I know what I shall do, so that when I am removed from the stewardship, they may welcome me into their homes.' He called in his master's debtors one by one, and to the first he said, 'How much do you owe my master?' He replied, 100 measures of olive oil. And he said to him, 'Here is your promissory note. Sit down and quickly write one for 50. And then to another the steward said, 'And you, how much do you owe?' He replied, 100 cores of wheat. And the steward said to him, 'Here is your promissory note. Write one for 80. And the master commended that dishonest steward for acting prudently. For the children of this world are more prudent in dealing with their own generation than are the children of light. I tell you, make friends for yourselves with dishonest wealth, so that when it fails, you will be welcomed into eternal dwellings. The person who is trustworthy in very small matters is also trustworthy in great ones. And the person who is dishonest in very small matters is also dishonest in great ones. If therefore you are not trustworthy with dishonest wealth, who will trust you with true wealth? If you are not trustworthy with what belongs to another, who will give you what is yours? No servant can serve two masters. He will either hate one and love the other, or be devoted to one and despise the other. You cannot serve both, God and mammon. The Gospel of the Lord. Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ. The readings of today focus on the themes of honesty and dishonesty. The first reading of today from Prophet Amos reminds the leaders of Israel who are cheating on the people, who are being unfair, who are fixing the scales, who are selling people for a pair of sandals. This is a perfect example of the highest levels of corruption. And so God is calling His people to turn around, and especially to the leaders who are being so dishonest and corrupt. I have several examples that come to mind that I wrote down in my meditation. How dishonesty is played out in our everyday life. Sometimes dishonesty is illegal, but sometimes dishonesty is legal. Some examples of illegal activity. You know that I am from Peru. I'm from Peru, a third world country. Every single president of Peru is in prison. The ones that have been presidents in my lifetime. Except one, when the police went to catch him to put him in prison, he shot himself. But all of the ones that have been presidents in my lifetime, they are imprisoned. Why? Because of highest levels of corruption. When I was a child, a teenager actually, in the 90s, there was this big discovery of our president at the time, who had taped himself or his workers bribing with thousands of dollars to corporations and politicians so that they would move from one party to the party of the president so that he could have more votes. About 3,000 tapes. And at that time, they were in VCR because there was no CD or no USB. Unbelievable. They are all in prison. Another example of highest levels of corruption, when we think about the sexual abuse crisis in the church, that's another example of high standard of corruption and dishonesty. If it was bad enough to see that our minors were being abused, it was even worse that as an institution we worked on the cover-up. That's the highest levels of dishonesty, and even reached all the way to the Vatican. A few months ago, we heard the story of a priest in a different diocese that embezzled all the parishes he had been pastor at for a total amount of about $5 million. How do you do that? I mean, it's just unbelievable. Don't they have finance councils? It's unbelievable. Another example of highest examples of dishonesty would be the scam calls that you receive on a weekly basis. All of you have received one, right? Yeah? Or the emails. There is a new one now in the last year in which they create a priest email, and even Bishop Gru's email, they create one, and then they send it to you asking for help. And then they are asking you for MoneyGram wire transfers or iTunes cards. And this is going on right now, okay? So if you received an email from me, it's not me. It's not me. But we get all those calls all the time. But then there are examples of dishonesty that are actually legal. For example, banks that are offering for you pre-approved outrageous amounts of loans. For example, I get pre-approved every week for $500,000. I tell you, at this rate, it will take me just a couple of weeks to put the parish out of debt. I can tell you that. And corporations do this legally, and people fall prey into that. For example, in the internet, all of us use the internet on one way or another, especially when we check Facebook, when we check Pinterest, or any other social media accounts that we may have. Do you know that you are no longer the customer? You are actually the product. Have you ever thought yourself as a product as opposed to be a customer? And I'll tell you why. Because every time you click, there is an incredible amount of information that is gathered about you. And that information is sold so that advertisers can send you the right stuff that you like, because you also saw this. And others may have seen that, bought this too. It shows up. You are the product. And this is what is even worse, is that we are tricked into belief that we are not the product. So in the internet world, we are called the user, right? You are the user. Wrong. You are used, because your information is used for more profit. And it's legal in some cases. So I can go up and down with examples of massive examples of corruption and dishonesty. But then comes the gospel of Jesus that is challenging us to be rightful and to be honest in the small things. Because if we are honest in the small things, we will be honest in the greater things. If we are certainly dishonest in huge things, There is no way that person can be honest in small things. But it all starts little. It all starts small. And we have to focus on those small things that will make us trustworthy in the greater things. Remember that when we look at massive examples of dishonesty, we may have a temptation. The temptation is that it makes us feel better, because if I look at the example of that priest that embezzled $5 million, I look good. I look good, right? Father, forgive me for I have sinned. My last confession was this many months ago, and I never killed anybody. I haven't killed my wife. I have never cheated to her. When we compare ourselves to the worst examples, we look good. I look good. And makes me feel better, because I'm better, right? I'm better than them. I'm not as corrupt as they are. The challenge of Jesus is for you and for me, because you are hearing this message, I am hearing this message. The gospel of Jesus is saying to us, be trustworthy in the small things. If we are trustworthy in the small ones, we will be trustworthy in the bigger ones. And a stupid example, texting and driving. Oh, come on, it's just one text. Well, 2 years ago, I was visiting my brother, my sister-in-law, my nephew in Chicago, and somebody hit me in the back. And it was in a lighting intersection. And this person was texting and driving. I was just getting ready to come back, and thank God the car was okay that I could drive it. I had my sister-in-law, my nephew in the back, and I even had a fish for my aquarium in a cooler. Boom! Text and driving. The fish was okay. Oh, my sister-in-law and my nephew too, yes. But you may say, oh, come on, it's just one text. If we are trustworthy in the small things, we can be trustworthy in the greater ones. It's for the safety of society and our own. A recovering alcoholic can never say, oh, it's just one drink. Oh, just come on, just not going to hurt you. You don't do that. You don't do that. When I started taking care of myself, oh, come on, Father, just one cookie, Father. Oh, I'm not going to hurt you. You have a sweet tooth anyways. No. So once again, we have to be trustworthy in the small things in order to be trustworthy in the greater ones. Give you another example. Every Mass, every time we have a Mass, there is a collection, right? Because that's the most Catholic thing that we can do. Even when I was a kid, I used to play Mass, and my Masses had collection. We used to have Monopoly money. But we do the collection, and the ushers, they take the collection, they put it in a tamper-proof bag, it is put in a safe place, then it is moved to a safe, fireproof. Then on Monday, money counters come and count the money to the penny. Because every penny matters. It's yours. Comes from you. We have to be trustworthy in the very little things. I am very amazed, for example, here at our Parish of All Saints, our finance council. We have a top-notch finance council because every penny is important. Oh, come on, just 50 cents. No. When we are trustworthy in the small things, we can be trustworthy in the great things. And it is the small things that add up. The small things are big in the long term. Think about all the volunteers that it takes to run a parish. They come early. They have to sacrifice time to come and practice, to get things ready, to open the church. For you, small thing, yeah, but in the bigger spectrum, it's big. It's big. Think about the people that take care of you at home. The mailman. It's a big thing. Remember the time when the paper came daily? The one that picks up the trash. It's a person that needs to be honored, to be respected, and thanked for. When Father Steve was at the hospital, I saw the big picture and the small picture. The big picture, the big things, the actual surgery that he had to go through, several of them. Those are the big things. But then I also saw the small things. When Father Steve would be thirsty, asking for a glass of water. Isn't that what Jesus said at the cross? I thirst. And somebody will take care of him. Small things. And I saw this over and over and over because I spent hours with the man. Those small things are so important. Because if we are trustworthy in those small things, they can be huge. So definitely we have to examine our own consciences. It's easier to point out the finger to others, but we have to look at ourselves. Examine the small things in your life and how you are doing. And compare yourself, not to the worst example, but to the best examples, the saints, and see how far you are. But that we can do it with the grace of God. The small things. What is my prayer routine like? That small period of time in the morning after the coffee is being made. Or do I make excuses? There will be more time later. And the time never comes. How do I communicate with my family? Do I truly tell the people that are with me that I love them? Oh, they know that I love them. Yes, they know. But it doesn't hurt to say it again. Those who live with me, do I treat them with respect and the honor they deserve? The small things of life. Is my house in order? And by saying this, I mean it in two ways. The physical house and the heart. Do I create an environment that fosters peace and welcome? And once again, the physical house and the house of our heart. Do I take care of my body? If we talk about stewardship, that's the most intimate stewardship we can do. Take care of our own bodies that God has given to us as temple of the Holy Spirit. Do I put my needs first or the needs of others? Do I gossip? Do I wait for my neighbor to sing so that then I can say, aha, you did it? Am I truly honest in my relationships? Am I honest in my abilities? Do I recognize in humility the things I can no longer do? And with honesty say, I can no longer do this. I have to be honest with myself and with God. Remember that as the steward of the gospel, God called to the master's office, so you and I will also be called to God's office. That's called the personal judgment, and none of us will escape it. And we will be asked of a full account of our stewardship. Scary. Scary. And at the same time, God is merciful and loving. But we still have to give a full account. We still have to do it. And remember that the person that is trustworthy in very small matters is also trustworthy in great ones. And the person who is dishonest in very small matters is also dishonest in great ones. Amen.